Hello everyone, I'm Luciano Oliveira from Oliveira Lawyers. I am a Brazilian attorney also licensed in California and Texas, and today we're going to be talking about how long can a lawsuit last in Brazil. The first thing we're going to note is that there is a lot of backlog at courts in Brazil. In Brazil, courts are, just like in the United States, handled, managed, and funded at the state level. So for different states, you may have a different timeline for a lawsuit. On the other hand, unfortunately, it's very common for one to see that even across the states, lawsuits in Brazil are going to last substantially longer than what you would see in the United States, for instance. Several years ago, we had a reform to the Civil Procedure Code in Brazil to try to address such backlogs and timeline, and it did reduce a bit, but unfortunately still, again, by comparing Brazil to other countries, we can tell that cases in Brazil take substantially longer to resolve. All right, we're also going to talk about how many public servants are going to impact on the timeline that a lawsuit is going to take to resolve in Brazil. Judges, even within the same court, are going to have a different approach on how they handle cases, and this is going to impact on the timeline for a case as well. And just like in the United States, and I would guess most of the countries, you cannot, unfortunately, pick a judge. A judge is going to be assigned to your case randomly, systemically, by the court system. In Brazil, it's also common for judges, in addition to listening to the two parties in a dispute, to go to the so-called Ministério Público to have the state attorney's opinion on how a certain matter should be decided. Another public servant that is going to participate in the process is going to be the process server. In the United States, the service of process on a party is done by private service providers, but not in Brazil. In Brazil, only the so-called oficiais de justiça can actually serve a party, and they go through public examination before being authorized to serve processes. This, again, is going to add additional time because you cannot just use someone like a private party. Unfortunately, you're going to need to secure this type of official process server before even being able to serve a party. In other words, there are many participants from the state into a lawsuit. This is not as straightforward and simplified as it is in the United States, and this dynamic is, of course, add time to the overall timeline. Now you're probably thinking, how can I expedite that? I don't want to stay entangled. For several years in Brazil, I want to resolve the dispute ASAP. How can I expedite things? So in our experience, the strategy that an attorney or law firm will have for your case is going to be one of the main reasons why a case may be resolved sooner than later. One of the strategies we have here at the firm is to always try to have a settlement, but never before actually filing a suit. Brazilian debtors, for instance, they usually see the creditor as too far away to represent a danger to their business. Once a Brazilian law firm shows up and file a lawsuit, this is going to cause a dramatically change in behavior for the debtor. Therefore, even if you don't want to wait for several years for a lawsuit to resolve, by filing a lawsuit and then trying to negotiate, this could increase your success chances substantially. Another thing that may save a lot of time and reduce the overall timeline is to have quick filings through your attorney. Unfortunately, in Brazil, many law firms are going to take more cases than they can properly handle, and invariably, they are going to end up filing things at the last day allowed. Now, if you file things within a couple of days or a few days after being served with something from the opposite party or being requested by the judge, this could shave off from 10 to 15 days each time your attorney does something at the court level on your behalf. Another example, in probates in Brazil, if family members can work along well, This could reduce dramatically the overall timeline. Probates in Brazil in which family members are fighting among each others. If family members are fighting among them, this could add several years to the overall timeline. The posture that our client has regarding a specific cause may also either reduce the timeline or increase the timeline. We try to be as objective as possible in terms of securing what our clients are looking for. But at the end of the day, they are either going to be obtaining something as, like a compensation, or they are going to get some type of right or thing they are looking for in Brazil. But we would not tolerate, for instance, clients who are doing something just to hurt the other side. In other words, even though there is a dispute, there is a lawsuit, both parties should acknowledge that there is a goal for the lawsuit to be resolved, and this goal should be very objective, and these two parties should not be fighting against each other just for the sake of fighting. Finally, there is also in the Brazilian legal process the possibility of mediation, but just like in the United States and other countries, mediation is not mandatory. So there is a need for both parties to agree with mediation, and if both parties agree, mediation may be an opportunity for these parties to find a common ground and avoid years of litigation. So now that you have an idea about the things that impact on a litigation timeline in Brazil, let's talk about average timelines. So for quick cases, what we see here at the firm is a case that's going to resolve in up to 2 or 3 years of work. An average case is going to take between 4 to 7 years, and a long case is going to take over 7 years. Now, an exception to those timelines are going to be probates in which family members are fighting. If family members are fighting, it's very common for timelines to increase substantially and even take as much as 20 years. I hope this video was helpful. If you like it, follow us for more tips, and don't forget to download our ebook, The 7 Things You Must Know When Handling Disputes in Brazil.